We have better maps of the moon's surface than we do of the ocean floor beneath our own feet. That's not an exaggeration. The moon is smaller than Earth's deep seafloor, has no water hiding it, and can be photographed from orbit with a telescope. The ocean floor, by contrast, is hidden under an average of nearly 4 kilometers of water, and it covers 2/3 of our planet. So here's the question we are answering today. How is it possible that in 2026, with satellites, AI, and submarines that can survive crushing pressure, most of our own planet remains a total mystery? Let's start with the number. You've probably heard, 80% of the ocean is unexplored. NOAA itself uses this figure, and it's a reasonable rough estimate. But when scientists get more specific, the real picture is even more extreme. As of 2026, roughly 29% of the global seafloor has been mapped using modern high-resolution sonar. Mapped, meaning we have a rough 3D shape of the terrain, the way a blurry satellite photo shows you a mountain range. Mapping is not the same as exploring. Exploring means actually sending a camera, a submersible, or a human down to look, measure, and sample. And that number is nowhere close to 20%. A 2025 study in the journal Science Advances found that humans have visually observed less than 0.001% of the deep seafloor, an area roughly the size of Rhode Island. To put that in perspective, if we applied that same ratio to land, everything we know about life on Earth's continents would come from an area about the size of Greater London. And it gets more lopsided. Around 97% of those direct observations were made by just 5 countries: the US, Japan, New Zealand, France, and Germany, and 65% of all deep-sea dives happened within 200 nautical miles of the US, Japan, or New Zealand's coastlines. We haven't just failed to explore the ocean. We've explored a tiny, geographically biased sliver of it over and over again. So why is this still true in an age when we can land a rover on Mars? Reason 1. Scale. The deep ocean, anything below 200 meters, where sunlight disappears, covers more than 335 million square kilometers. That's the entire deep seafloor. It's simply enormous. And every square kilometer requires its own pass with a ship or a sensor. Reason 2. Pressure. This is the big one. At the surface, you're under 1 atmosphere of pressure. Go down just 10 meters, and it doubles. By the time you reach the deepest known point on Earth, the Challenger, deep in the Mariana Trench, about 10,935 meters down, the pressure is over 1,000 times what it is at the surface. That's often compared to the weight of 50 jumbo jets pressing down on a single object, or roughly 8 tons bearing down on every square inch. At that pressure, water itself gets measurably denser. Standard submarines would be crushed instantly. Only a handful of specially engineered submersibles have ever survived a trip there. The Trieste in 1960, James Cameron's Deep-Sea Challenger in 2012, and Victor Vescovo's limiting factor starting in 2019. Reason 3. Darkness and cost. Below 200 meters, there's no sunlight at all. Every dive needs its own light source, and cameras can only illuminate a small patch of seafloor at a time, like exploring a football stadium at night, with a single flashlight. Building and operating a deep-sea submersible, or ROV, costs tens of millions of dollars, and a single expedition might cover only a few square kilometers. Put it all together, a vast area, crushing pressure, total darkness, and enormous cost, and you start to understand why we've mapped Mars in more detail than our own ocean floor. There's a 4th reason too. One people rarely talk about: bias in exploration itself. Even with the ships and submersibles we do have, expeditions tend to return to the same handful of well-funded, well-studied sites near wealthy, coastal nations, because that's where the infrastructure, funding, and train crews already exist. Vast stretches of the Pacific, the Indian Ocean, and the polar seas get skipped entirely, not because they're less interesting, but because almost nobody can afford to go there. Here's where it gets exciting. Because every single time humans have pushed into the deep ocean, we've found something nobody predicted. The hydrothermal vents, 1977. For most of scientific history, every food chain on Earth was assumed to run on sunlight, plants absorb it, animals eat plants, and so on. In February 1977, a team exploring the Galapagos Rift aboard the submersible, Alvin found towering vents spewing water heated to hundreds of degrees Celsius, and they were surrounded by thriving colonies of giant tube worms, foot-long clams, and other creatures no one had ever documented. These ecosystems don't run on sunlight at all. They run on chemosynthesis, bacteria converting chemicals from the vents directly into energy. It rewired our entire understanding of what life requires to exist, and it's part of why scientists now think life might survive in the subsurface oceans of moons like Europa or Enceladus. The 5 Deeps Expedition, 2018 to 2019. Explorer Victor Vescovo led a mission to reach the deepest point of all 5 oceans in a single submersible. Along the way, his team discovered more than 40 new species, including new types of amphipods and a previously unknown hadal snailfish, the deepest living fish ever recorded on camera. They also found something far less exciting, a plastic bag and candy wrappers, sitting at the very bottom of the Mariana Trench, deeper than any human had gone before them. The Challenger Deep's first witnesses, 1960. Long before Vescovo or Cameron, Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh became the first humans to reach the Challenger, deep aboard the bathyscaphe Trieste, at a depth where scientists had assumed almost nothing complex could survive. The pair reportedly spotted what looked like a flatfish resting on the bottom. Whether that sighting was truly a fish or another kind of organism is still debated today, but the dive itself answered a question biologists had been asking for decades. Could complex life exist at the very deepest point on Earth? The answer was yes, and it reshaped what scientists thought was biologically possible under extreme pressure. The unnamed majority. Scientists estimate there could be anywhere from 700,000 to over 1 million species living in the ocean, and a large share of deep sea animals encountered on expeditions turn out to be new to science. Every dive into the deep sea has roughly the same odds of finding something never seen before as a dive into a completely alien planet. What this pattern tells us: look at the timeline: 1960, 1977, 2012, 2019. Every single major deep ocean milestone, decades apart, produced a discovery nobody predicted going in. That's not a coincidence. It's a signal. We are still at the very beginning of understanding what lives down there. And unlike space exploration, we don't need to build a rocket capable of leaving the atmosphere to go look. The unknown world in this story isn't light years away. It's directly beneath the boat sailing over it right now. It's easy to file this under cool trivia. But unexplored doesn't mean unimportant. The deep ocean plays a direct role in regulating Earth's climate and producing the oxygen we breathe. Countries are now moving to approve deep-sea mining for critical minerals in these same unexplored regions, mining that could disturb ecosystems we haven't even documented yet, let alone understood. Researchers pushing back on this have made the point plainly. You cannot responsibly manage or protect an ecosystem you've never studied. There's also a more optimistic angle. Marine organisms, from deep-sea sponges to microbes, living around hydrothermal vents, have already been a source of compounds used in cancer treatments and antiviral drugs, precisely because organisms surviving in extreme alien conditions tend to produce extreme alien chemistry. Every unexplored trench is a chemistry lab we haven't opened yet. The good news is that closing this gap isn't science fiction. It's already underway. An international effort called Seabed 2030 has been steadily pushing that high-resolution mapping number up year over year, with a goal of a complete map of the entire ocean floor by the end of the decade. It's a coordinated project pulling in data from research ships, navies, and even commercial vessels crossing the ocean anyway, turning routine voyages into mapping runs. At the same time, non-profit groups like the Ocean Discovery League are pushing for something just as important as mapping: making deep-sea exploration cheaper. Right now, direct observation is dominated by a handful of wealthy nations. because the equipment is so expensive. Lower-cost camera systems and landers could let far more countries and far more of the ocean get looked at directly for the first time. And expeditions like 5 Deeps prove something too. This doesn't have to be purely a government project. Private teams, universities, and even individual explorers are now capable of reaching the most extreme points on the planet and bringing back real scientific data, not just headlines. So the next time someone says we've run out of frontiers to explore, remember this: there is a version of Earth, covering 2/3 of the planet, that remains less explored than the Moon, sitting just a few kilometers beneath the waves outside every coastal city on the planet. We've barely scratched the surface. Literally. If you had to guess, what do you think is still waiting down there? Let me know in the comments, and if this blew your mind, subscribe, because next time, we are heading somewhere even stranger.